Hey everybody, this is Fritz from jagmte.com. This video is to demonstrate the self-venting spigot that I've developed for the Scepter and LCI water cans. Over here are the components that come in the kit, either a brown cap or a green cap depending on what you choose. And then in addition to that is a self-venting spigot, a polypropylene 45-degree elbow, a polypropylene nut, a rubber O-ring, and some grease for the threads and the O-ring on the attachment to the cap. What I want to do real quick is demonstrate the assembly of the items when you receive them, how to put them together, and then I'll show the spigot in action on a can. So here we go. This is how you're going to receive this assembly. So simply take it from the outside of the cap and screw it in roughly until the threads begin to touch the cap. Because we don't know exactly where we want this, because we don't know exactly where the cap is going to stop on the can. So these will be adjusted depending on where the cap stops on the can, so it's sticking straight out and functions correctly. Okay, next you'll flip it over. Take your little grease packet, find the little end on it where the grease is intended to come out. See that little opening down there? It's easiest if you take a pair of scissors and trim that so there's not so much material in your way when you're trying to put the grease on. Take a little bit of the grease, put it around the bottom of the threads where the O-ring is going to go. Then take your O-ring, stretch it over the threads and roll it down as best you can. Then take a little more of the grease and put it on top of the O-ring to provide lubricant so the nut does not catch and displace the O-ring when you're running it down. On the nut you'll see that it has one tapered side, a side with a small taper in it where you see the threads start, and a flat side. You want the taper side facing the inside of the cap. So taper side facing the inside. Simply run the nut down, and you're going to need an adjustable wrench, something like this, to finish it. This is not something you want really tight. Okay, all you're doing is snugging this down to the point where there's some pressure on the O-ring, and the grease and the O-ring create a seal. What you will get into if you try to over tighten it, which you might have to experiment with, is it will displace the O-ring and you'll see it sticking out from underneath the edge of the nut, and the assembly will probably leak. So you're just snugging it up, and get rid of any extra grease around the edges of the nut, and you should be ready to go. If it happens to have a very small weep or drip that comes out of here, you can fuss with this a little bit to eliminate that, or just not worry about it because it's not a tremendous amount of water that will come out of there. And that's about it for the assembly. And what you would do to use this is simply take the cap, the normal cap, off, leave it on by its strap. Wow, that's a tractor and a bush hog. That's excellent timing. And you're going to need a cap wrench in order to be able to get this on tight enough and to get your position correct on the can, so the spigot is not at the top of the cap. So if you don't have a wrench, you're probably going to want to get one of those. In this cap we can get it pretty close to where we want it. That's fairly straight. And then you would set it up on its end and see if you had any leaks. I have a can set up over here already to demonstrate for you. My lovely wife Jennifer will try to get down without killing herself and making everybody puke. This is the basic setup. It's designed to have a piece of cribbing underneath the back of the can to get a majority of the water to the front of the can and to level this. If you don't, it's about 8 degrees or 9 degrees off of level. It looks a little funny. When you first start to pour with this, it might take a moment for the vent to clear. but in this case it's not. So this is basically, oh no, yeah, there we go, the vent's clearing now. So this would demonstrate the flow that would be consistent from this spigot throughout the entire process of emptying the can. Once the vent has cleared, that's what you get each time. And the reason for this is a one-handed operation. If you are filling pots and pans and cups and stuff at a campsite, this makes for a nice, easy one-handed operation. And you'll see in some of my other videos I have some other configurations that do fairly well also, but they're basically a two-handed operation. So that's it for that one. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. And otherwise, there you have it.